A familiar set of coronal holes rotates back into Earth view with the promise of a solar storm. And let's check in with our local satellite environment. Those stories and more in the news this week. This forecast sponsored in part by Eric Johansson. Check him out at instagram.com/scubist. Space weather this week continues to be a bit on the quiet side. As we switch to our front side sun, you can see the disk continues to be completely spotless. This means amateur radio operators and emergency responders, the solar flux continues to be low, so radio propagation on Earth's day side is going to also be poor. We also don't have anything rotating in through the Earth strike zone this week, so we don't have any storms on the way. However, if you look at the east limb of the sun, you do see that dark coronal hole, and that is beginning to rotate into Earth view. It's actually one of two coronal holes. As we switch to our backside sun, well, our partial backside sun with stereo, you can see the two sets of coronal holes right there. This is the pair of coronal holes that last rotation gave us a nice sized solar storm and brought Aurora clear down to Colorado. So Aurora photographers, get ready, because you've got about 2 weeks, maybe a little bit less, to get your batteries charged. Switching to our moon, we are now passing through the third quarter phase on our way to a new moon, and by the 25th, the moon will only be about 35% illuminated. So you night sky watchers, now's a chance to start looking for those dim objects in the sky. And now for your Leo, MEO, GEO orbit outlook. As we switch to our low energy space environment, these are the particles that can cause surface charging on the outside of spacecraft, including charging up the solar arrays that then can cause electrical discharges. We are getting a few injections of flux right around the outside of the GEO orbits. This has been due to the fast solar wind that we've had over the last few days. It's not been all that fast, so the injections have been pretty minor. So you satellite operators, especially around GEO, you could get some intermittent issues with surface charging, but most likely the effects are going to be pretty minimal. Now, as we switch to the higher energy environment, these are the particles that have more energy to penetrate much more deeply into spacecraft electronics. We originally did have a bit of a buildup just outside of the MEO orbits, but that got flushed with the fast solar wind that hit, and now we're slowly beginning to build that flux back up again, but it's not really doing all that well. So it looks like over the next few days, you satellite operators, especially inside of GEO and in MEO orbits and even at LEO orbits, it looks like things are going to be pretty good and you're pretty much in the clear. Switching to your solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we aren't anticipating any big solar storms this week. There aren't any huge coronal holes rotating in through the Earth strike zone. We will have a little bit of influence from a coronal hole in the southern pole. It could be sending us a little bit of fast wind, but most likely the conditions will just be a bit disturbed. So at high latitudes, NOAA is expecting unsettled conditions with up to about a 15% chance of a minor storm, but most likely we won't see anything like that. At mid-latitudes, we're only expecting normal to unsettled conditions with only about a 5% chance of active conditions, so it's going to be pretty quiet. And these conditions will easily continue over the next week before we start getting the influence from some of the other coronal holes that are rotating into Earth view. Switching to your solar flare and particle radiation storm outlook over the coming week, everything is in the green when it comes to solar flares. We still have a spotless sun on the Earth-facing disk. We do have a few bright points here and there, but they're not really contributing to the solar flux very much. This should make you GPS users on Earth's dayside very happy. We have no risk for radio blackouts with a spotless sun, and the solar flux continues to be low. Of course, amateur radio operators and you emergency responders, you're not liking this low solar flux, because that means poor radio propagation, and from what I've been told, the sporadic E season in the northern hemisphere has also kind of died off a bit. So it looks like we're dealing with very poor radio propagation on Earth's dayside, and this trend is going to continue until we see more sunspots. And right now, even from stereo's view, we're not seeing it. So just have to deal with the solar minimum sun right now. Now also, because it is solar minimum, we are getting a higher cosmic ray impingement than we normally would. So you frequent flyers, and this does include aircrew who fly over 800 hours annually and fly at high latitudes and high altitudes, you are in the moderate range for radiation dose, and this does include prenatal passengers. So please take this into consideration in your flight plans. So the space weather this week continues to be a bit on the quiet side. We don't have any big disturbances this week, so we're not expecting any solar storms. But you aurora photographers, you definitely should get your batteries charged, because we do have those set of coronal holes that are rotating into Earth view, and in about 2 weeks we could actually get a solar storm from one of these. So be on your toes. Now, amateur radio operators and emergency responders, again, we've got a solar minimum sun. We have no active regions on the Earth-facing disk or even on the backside. So it looks like poor radio propagation conditions are in store for you easily through this next week, and I hate to say it, probably well into next week as well. Now, you GPS users, well, you guys have it good all the way around, because the GPS reception all over the globe should look top-notch. I'm Tamitha Scove. Thank you for watching.